The Mythic Tier has arrived at retail, or at least part of it. It's currently June when I'm recording this, and I'm aware of the fact that I'm very behind on HeroQuest videos, and a lot of interesting stuff has happened, but I'm just gonna go in chronological order and focus just on Spirit Queen's Torment and Prophecy of Telor in this video. But before we get to the exciting news, we can't ignore the elephant in the room. The layoffs by a soulless corporation just weeks before Christmas. The reason why I'm speaking about this and I hardly spoke about the OGL thing last year is that this has a direct impact on HeroQuest. Because for sure Chris, who you may know as in Carmine, is one of the people who was laid off. And that's really sad for me beyond the job security aspect of that. Just the fact that I've never seen a manager in a large company before interact with the community that closely, to the point of joining a fan Discord server and having nice positive interactions with the fans that way. Hasbro's decisions here don't really make sense for layoffs, such as the majority of the people who worked on Baldur's Gate 3 or pushed to have it made in the first place, they were laid off despite the game becoming Game of the Year. I know there probably exists consulting documents somewhere within the company demonstrating their reasoning for it, but from an outsider perspective their layoffs make absolutely no sense. It's just really sad to see, especially so close to the holidays. Without going too deep into it, my personal belief here is that part of the reason for these layoffs is the fact that we have an economic system that values infinite shareholder growth above all else. And that's when we see companies perform unethical practices such as utilizing child labor or not following safety protocols, things like that. This has another direct impact on HeroQuest, making the future for it very uncertain. We know that the game will be still around for 2024 and that their plans for the next year aren't changing, but with Hasbro wanting to focus just on their big brands, and the tweet by Avalon Hill asking for potential crossovers with other Hasbro-owned products, it's unclear how much longer this new content will be produced. Don't get me wrong, it would be cool if HeroQuest had a D&D crossover or something like that, but I don't think it's like HeroScape where it's as versatile to go into different universes. Avalon Hill got us talking about Against the Ogre Horde after the hints in the Coliseum at Gen Con. And side note, the box art of it was revealed during my absence. One interesting thing about the box art is that the ogres look more like Warhammer's orcs than the new orcs do, although they are a lot larger than the average orc boy. The monks and 3 different quest packs have been shipped to people since it's been so long since I've gotten around to making this video. So if Avalon Hill didn't reveal Against the Ogre Horde, what did they reveal? Instead, at Spiel Essen in Germany, they revealed 2 quest packs that were originally just stretch goal quest books in the Mythic Tier, Prophecy of Telor and Spirit Queen's Torment. We saw the cover of the first one ahead of time, but we only heard rumors of the second prior to the festival. I really like the setup. It's really good set dressing is all I want to say. And they had like little painting setups, that's kind of cool. Here's a highlight reel of what went on at Spiel Essen, including the actual reveal of both games. And Betrayal at House on the Hill. I did a review of that if you are curious to check it out. Exclusive news from Essen. Prophecy of Telor and Spirit Queen's Torment have returned, featuring deluxe rainbow UV printing on the box and translucent plastic minis and dice. So let's examine these, starting with Prophecy of Telor. Something that you've been aware of for months is the fact that this actually has the stretchable miniatures in it as well. The alternate sculpts of the minis. These are the Dread Warriors, the female ones. You have the Abominations with no weapon in their hand. You have the skeletons dragging the sword behind them that I really love. You have the female mummies. Always good to have extra mummy sculpts. And the goblins if I haven't already mentioned them, as well as what looks to be orange-ish dice, which is interesting. Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about this because it's been a while since I've thought about this. But there is also the Warlock in this expansion, which was actually a surprise for me when this happened, as well as the fact that you get 2 copies of the alternate Gargoyle sculpt. You get the one in red to represent the Warlock's demon form, and you also get the one in the translucent plastic to represent an enemy. Here's a close-up of a couple more miniatures, including the Orc with the Warhammer. That's one that I have not yet mentioned. Warlock sculpt actually looks pretty good here. Like, that's actually a massive amount of detail. I'm not sure if mine has that much detail or not. I haven't looked at it for a while. And here's what you're getting. You're getting the quest book, bunch of cards, and all the miniatures. Vile dread magic has rendered Lore Tome nigh unreadable, and its pages reveal just one name, Melar. Though the wizard Melar vanished long ago, leaving his tower and studies to ruin, it is known that he had been experimenting with forbidden magic beyond his means. Alas, in his disappearance, all that could be found was the Talisman of Lore. Something must have been overlooked for Lore Tome to be so gravely affected. Playing as one of HeroQuest's brave heroes, you must enter the Maze of Melar and put an end to whatever foul machinations are at play. Now we can check out Spirit Queen's Torment. Very similar thing, it has those same alternate sculpt minis, just in like a blue plastic instead of orange. for this one to match the spiritual vibe. That sounded weird to say, but whatever. And this one has the Bard hero with it. So the only one missing is the Druid. And it's not actually missing because it's in another of the expansions that I haven't yet talked about. But you have the Bard here, you have the cards of course with it, different spell scrolls, and you have the blue translucent dice. And you can tell from here that the cover is holographic. The Elven Sage Sylvana, brilliant diviner and longtime ally of Mentor, has been experiencing visions of disquiet spirits surrounding her beloved late apprentice, Nalaf, a skilled spirit talker who had been slain by Zargon and laid to rest years ago. Playing as one of HeroQuest's brave heroes, you must enter the Wyvern Keep and end whatever vile plot has disturbed Nelaf's eternal slumber, before a fate worse than death befalls her. Well, that was just a brief overview of this. I have a couple thoughts about these expansions finally coming to retail. First, let's start out with the negative though. A couple criticisms that I've seen is that the translucent plastic makes it a little bit harder to see the details, as opposed to solid color plastic, and they're slightly more rigid than the base game plastic, which means that they're going to be more prone to breaking. But in a way, that kind of brings it closer back to the old game, because I know that my miniatures snap, and definitely lots of other people's did as well back in the day. You also lose out on the color matching when running out of one monster type and can't substitute it for, like, let's say another green miniature. But I think these products are more likely targeted towards the adults who didn't buy the Mythic tier and missed out on it, rather than kids wanting a simple board game. What about the positive? I see the release of these two quest packs as a win-win situation between Mythic tier owners and those who missed out. Because this still allows the Mythic tier to retain its value. You can easily tell the Mythic tier alt sculpts apart because they're in a different colored plastic. So yeah, the Mythic tier retains value while still allowing others to get those same exact sculpts. It also allows for better kit bashing. Let's say that somebody was afraid to touch their rare stretch goal miniatures, but with these expansions, they're free to experiment a little bit more with their miniatures. If they mess up, it's not the worst thing in the world because there's multiple of this type of miniature. And it's also a good thing for the YouTube community as well, because content creators that aren't me, who were a little bit more organized and on the ball, who created painting tutorials for the Mythic tier alt sculpts benefit too, because more people have access to those particular poses and might be searching for those on YouTube. A couple other things that I found interesting is that people were still debating about Crypt of Perpetual Darkness and whether that would come to retail ever in the future, because that's kind of the only piece of the Mythic tier that we're actually still missing, since we have all the quest books now and all the alternate sculpt miniatures, as well as extra dice too technically if you count the extra dice that come in these. The thing about Crypt of Perpetual Darkness people were arguing about was, is it a rights issue with Joe Manganiello? Is it that lore-wise it fits as the last quest? Or is it that it just doesn't quite fit with their vision of HeroQuest now, since it was more D&D-like than the other quest books? Another interesting thing that occurred is for the Hasbro's 100th anniversary, more Mythic tiers were sold briefly, alongside other successful HasLab projects. So, a few lucky individuals were still able to experience the Mythic tier several years after it went out of production. I am aware that there's Against the Ogre Horde stuff to talk about still, and there's also the whole Jungles of Delthorak thing that I haven't even touched. But for now, this is all the HeroQuest news that I'm covering. I will try and get to the other stuff, I promise. Thanks for watching, goodbye.